Chapter 6:14. As for why Nicole Robin agreed to be Dustless's subordinate, the reason was very simple. First, she was desperate, and she had to find a spacious and safe shoulder to lean on. Second, Dustless promised that after her mission was completed in the future, he would use Rinnegan's power to resurrect her mother with the technique of Rinnegan. Although there was suspicion of taking advantage of people, Dustless never valued the process. No matter how perfect the plan is, there will be countless loopholes. In contrast, he pays more attention to the final result. Hancock and Robin walked together, laughing and chatting happily towards Wu Chen's bedroom. From time to time, there was a crisp and pleasant laughter, showing their harmonious relationship. These two little girls, forget it, it's not bad. Dustless looked down at the figures walking side by side, standing with his hands behind his back, nodded and chuckled, then shook his head and couldn't help but sigh. Dustless still clearly remembered that because of a certain protagonist, the relationship between Robin and Hancock was not harmonious, and even a little bit hostile. It was completely new to him. When dealing with the enemy, the muzzle was united, and the internal relationship was harmonious. This was the situation Dustless wanted to see. Although he scoffed at the so-called fetters, he still hoped that they could be restrained by each other's sincerity. As for an anomaly like Doflamingo, Dustless didn't hold any hope. Sitting on the sofa in silence, Wu Chen tasted the steaming tea carefully. Sometimes, he would pick up one or two pieces of carefully made pastries and put them into his mouth. In this world, he had developed the habit of eating snacks unconsciously, which could be regarded as killing the boring leisure time. About a few minutes later, Robin and Hancock came to Dustless's bedroom. "Master." The smile on their faces disappeared, and the two respectfully said. Dustless nodded. "You don't need to be so serious, sit down." Robin and Hancock looked at each other and sat down quietly. Compared with the slightly cautious Robin, Hancock, who usually gets along with Dustless every day, was more relaxed and natural. "Is Crocodile going to attack Alabaston?" As soon as Robin sat down, Dustless asked. "I don't know the specific situation, but it's true that he often pays attention to the situation of Alabaston, especially the royal family of Alabaston." Dustless frowned, and his face was full of doubts. It stands to reason that a small character like Crocodile knows the information of Pluton. After thinking about it, Dustless filtered the people he contacted in the past few months. He only thought of one person who may know the source of information of Pluton. Ambrio Ivankov, a senior cadre of the Revolutionary Army and a paramecia hormone fruit user. Although the times are few, Dustless learned from White Setsu that the two had contacted each other. "You played the whole world like a chess piece in the palm of your hand." This was also the reason why Dustless couldn't accept it. No one wanted to be deceived by a corpse that had decayed hundreds of years ago. Others might not care, but Dustless had a bone-deep hatred for it. Chapter 6:15. His tone was resolute and decisive, and it was obvious that he was not joking. Nico Robin's eyes widened as she looked at Dustless incredulously. She didn't expect such a ridiculous reason. She could only smile bitterly. Perhaps this is the mind of the Tenryuzu people. They eat, drink, play, and do things for no purpose. They just want to have fun. Will the Straw Hat really invite me to join their pirate group in the future? Although Dustless has confirmed it again and again, Nico Robin's heart was still full of doubts. Dustless has now clearly explained what will happen in the next 10 years. How can she not be surprised? It seems that everything will play out according to the script set by Dustless. Maybe there will be accidents, but it's just a trivial matter. Don't worry about it. People who don't have the power and try to change the development of history will only be crushed to pieces. Dustless vowed that Robin joining the Straw Hat Pirates is a sure thing, and he can use the Straw Hat Pirates to decipher the poneglyph. Staying with him will attract unnecessary trouble. Tenryuzu and the only remaining scholars of Ohara are mixed together. It's very attractive to think about this topic. After that, after the collection of the poneglyph, what should we do with the pirates? Robin asked curiously. After that? That's unnecessary. After they have no value, we will kill them all. Dustless murderously said. Even though he has a good relationship with Dustless, he won't change his position because of this. Unless Monkey D. Luffy is sensible, Dustless doesn't mind letting him live. If he doesn't, he will end up like Uzumaki Naruto. You have grown up so much. I have to take back the power of the Sharingan that I lent you. Dustless whispered. When he secretly brought the young Nico Robin to Mariewa, Dustless was afraid that she would be in danger, so he lent her his dojutsu. Now Robin has the power to protect herself, and there is the protection of Crocodile. The power of Sharingan continues to stay in her body is just a burden. Time flew by quickly. After instructing Nico and Robin on many important matters, it was almost dawn. The three of them were not ordinary humans. Even if they stayed up for an entire night, their expressions would not change. Robin then used his agile movements to leave without anyone noticing. It was as if nothing had happened. At the same time, Dustless also brought the bloodline factor information he obtained to Dressrosa through a secret channel, and successfully fell into the hands of Caesar. Caesar immediately carried out various experiments and accelerated the production of the artificial devil fruit. Because Fengche village was too remote, no one cared about it. Bandits would often visit this place. On the mountain road, a group of bandits was about to go to the town to rob, but a strange figure suddenly flashed. He had a handsome face and fair skin. At first glance, he was the son of a wealthy family. Pretty boy, hand over all your valuables and I'll leave your corpse intact. The ferocious bandit stood out. Seeing that Wu Qin was dressed like a young master from a wealthy family, he immediately warned. At the same time, he shook the machete in his hand, full of threat. Sig Mountain Bandits, it should be you. The king of your group of rats is called Sig, and he has a bounty of 8 million berries. Ignoring the threat of the bandits, Dustless said to himself, and at the same time, his eyes began to twist sharply, turning into dark red magatama, staring at the group of people with no expression. You called me the Rat King. As the leader, Sig's old face twitched fiercely. He stepped forward and his old face turned green. He waved his hand and said with hatred, it's not too late to cut him up and search him, so that he doesn't have to struggle. Since the boss gave the order, the group of bandits naturally did not dare to disobey, and they rushed toward Dustless. You group of bandits can fight with Akagami of Yonko, 4 emperors, and indirectly take one of his arms. It can be regarded as a blessing from the ancestral grave. A faint ripple appeared in his scarlet eyes, and the aggressive group of bandits instantly fell to the ground like dead dogs. Guru, at this moment, the Den Mushi in his arms suddenly rang. It was used by Dustless and Hawkeye. Did you kill the guy called Baron Egi? Before Hawkeye spoke, Dustless asked in advance. Eating the dark fruit has to pay a price, and this unbearable price is life. Do you think you can be safe after eating the dark fruit with the blessing of Bigumomu? What a fool. Although it is a little more troublesome, it has been done. Hawkeye was a little tired, but he was full of energy. It is very difficult to quietly kill the people protected by Bigumomu. He must find a chance to kill them. Otherwise, once he is discovered, he will be besieged. Therefore, Hawkeye wasted a lot of time looking for the right opportunity. But there is one thing, Kaido and Bigumomu seem to have colluded. I don't know what they are planning. On the other side of the Den Mushi, Hawkeye's cautious voice sounded. The destructive power of the 2 Yonko, 4 emperors, is beyond imagination, and their power can even defeat the Whitebeard pirates. Kaido and Bigu's mom could easily restrain Whitebeard, and even severely injure Whitebeard, and their fleets could crush Whitebeard's fleet with overwhelming power. Don't worry, I have already predicted the collusion of the Yonko, 4 emperors. A pirate is a pirate. There is nothing they can't do under absolute interests. Dustless was calm. He had already predicted that this day would come. Not colluding means that it is likely to be destroyed. Even if there is a grudge, it must be cut off and forgotten. Chapter 6:16. The strength of a Yonko, 4 emperors, almost dominates all the seas and can be called an invincible existence, like an emperor, the strongest existence above all creatures. The strength of 2 Yonko, 4 emperors, is self-evident, and the strong vibration emitted by them is enough to affect the whole world. This guy doesn't know how to be anxious at all. Hawkeye can't help admiring Dustless's calm mentality. The Yonko, 4 emperors, teaming up is not a joke. If you are not careful, you will be suppressed by the absolute power that can burn the world. You will never be able to raise your head. So what, are we going to beg for mercy in front of those 2 guys, Hawkeye? Dustless on the other side of the den Mushi asked. His frivolous tone was extremely indifferent. The Emperor is not anxious, but the eunuch is anxious. Hawkeye suddenly realized that he was thinking too much. Dustless is not worried, and there is no need to worry. Even if the sky falls, Dustless will be the first to take the hit. Only when Dustless collapsed would it be their group of underlings' turn. Then again, both the Big Imam pirates and the Kaido pirates have been hit hard. Even if they join forces with each other, they won't be able to take any practical action in a short time. After lurking around Big Imam for a while, Hawkeye knew the current situation of the Big Imam pirates. The entire fleet was beaten by Whitebeard. Even Big's mother was wounded, so it was easy to imagine the miserable fate of the crew and sailors of the fleet. Kaido is not that strong, he is not as good as Big Imam. Dustless said on the other side of the den Mushi. Not to mention that the 2 of them were working together now. Even if they were working in collusion with each other at their peak, Wu Chen was not afraid at all. Even if the number of people is not as good as Big Imam and Kaido pirates, the absolute strength is enough to crush everything, and the role of the human wave tactic is minimal. Absolute strength is Dustless's confidence, so he is not afraid of Kaido and Big Imam. After a casual chat, Dustless closed the den Mushi and turned to look at the bandits on the ground with a cruel smile on his face. For the sake of world peace, it was better to eliminate the Yonko as soon as possible. The first to raise the butcher's knife was the Akagami, red hair, pirates who hated Dustless the most. The enmity between the 2 sides had accumulated for a long time, and it had already reached the point of being incompatible like fire and water. Dustless naturally wouldn't let go of this extremely rare opportunity. I'm sorry, Garp. I might have to make use of your grandson this time. Dustless said coldly with a cold glint in his eyes. An unprecedentedly vicious plan quietly formed in his heart. If he had to blame someone, he could only blame Red Hair Shanks for asking for it. There was no one else to blame. He was completely caught in his own trap. Red Hair Shanks could make use of D, and Dustless was no exception. He could also make use of D, and give him a taste of his own medicine. No matter how optimistic Red Hair's temperament was, he would still feel despair if he was hurt by someone he trusted and bet on in the next era. Dustless is going to attack him step by step until his spirit collapses. Monkey. D. Luffy. If you want to complain, you should hate the word D in your name, so you were valued by Red Hair Shanks, so you were calculated by me. Scarlet eyes widened again and ripples visible to the naked eye appeared. The bandits on the ground stood up again. Their eyes were blank, and their eyes were empty and lifeless. It was as if their inner souls had been taken away and they had become walking corpses. Obviously, they had been controlled by Dustless's Sharingan and had lost their ability to think. Dustless is now the one who dominates their consciousness. Red-haired Shanks had absolute trust in Luffy, but Dustless didn't go against that kid's wishes. He had to borrow Luffy's hands to once again inflict heavy damage on his unbearable heart, until red-haired Shank's spirit collapsed. He planned to use the same method as Beckman to trample on red-hair Shanks. No, this time, he wanted to be even crueler than the last time. In the past, he was able to escape from death. This time, even if he could not kill him directly, he wanted to leave an indelible mark on Red-Hair's body. "Look at my eyes, you waste." With a loud shout, Dustless shouted at the bandits. "They are the most important actors in the play, and they can't be missing. Now go and catch that kid Monchi D. Luffy for me. Remember, the Akagami, Red Hair, pirates must see that it was you who did it." With a cold light in his eyes, Dustless ordered. The bandits nodded blankly and immediately rushed toward the windmill town, in the direction of the bandit house where Luffy usually goes. Although the plan is a bit rough, Dustless is sure that it will succeed. Sometimes the simpler the strategy, the more unexpected the effect. This group of hired actors is rough, but their opponents are the same pirates, so it shouldn't be a problem to grab Luffy. Sure enough, after about an hour, this group of bandits did indeed come back with a fainted little ghost. The only thing that was not complimentary was the fact that there were pursuers behind them. "Kid." As far as the eye could see, a golden-haired child with a face full of freckles and a hat was immediately reflected in Wu Chen's eyes. These two guys. One of them is the kid named Sabo, and the other seems to be the son of One Piece, Roger, Portkas D. Ace. Wu Chen couldn't help but be speechless. He knew that these two brats were ferocious, but it was inexcusable for a group of bandits to be chased by two brats. Wansho Tensei. After looking at the child in the hands of one of the bandits, Dustless's right hand exuded a strong gravitational force and easily sucked Luffy over. Then he looked at the approaching bandits, and with a calm and powerful light shout, suddenly the dust splashed, and the ground was full of smoke. The tyrannical repulsion swept out, and the ground where Dustless was standing also had a deep pit. Shinra Tensei. Chapter 617. The tyrannical repulsive force was extremely small, but the strength was unexpectedly strong. The people who came in contact with it were all bounced back like particles. It was as simple as eating or drinking water. The bandits who were too close to Dustless were bounced back without any effort. They fell heavily on the ground and directly fainted with white foam coming out of their mouths. Looking at Luffy in his hand expressionlessly, Dustless's Sharingan rotated rapidly. His finger lightly touched Luffy's forehead and implanted a transcription seal in his eyes. Of course, because he isn't an Uchiha, he doesn't have the Sharingan, so Dustless just implanted a genjutsu that doesn't harm the body. It's a genjutsu that can only be released at a specific time when meeting a specific person, transcription seal. It's like a ticking time bomb, no one knows when it will explode, and the probability of the people in this world being able to resist it is 0. "You bastard, let go of Luffy." The young and firm voice rang in his ears. Dustless raised his head. It was Ace who was holding a broadsword and Sabo who was holding an iron water pipe. Both of them stared at Dustless ferociously. Their clear eyes were replaced by murderous intent. They were like beasts that just broke out of their cages. It's hard to imagine that children of a few years old have such gloomy eyes. "So what if I don't let go? What do you think two brats can do?" Dustless asked with interest as his eyes fell on the two of them. In the future, these two will be popular figures in the world, but now, they are just wild vegetables on the roadside. No one cares about them. "I will kill you, damn bastard." Ace's murderous intent turned into a cold light shooting out of his eyes. He swooped down at an extremely fast speed. The moment he touched Dustless, his body agilely jumped a few meters high, and his broadsword flashed with cold light, chopping down towards Dustless's head. "So young and so ruthless, your temper is the same as your father's." Ace's fiery temper, which valued his companions, was very similar to Gold Roger in the past. He wouldn't allow anyone to bully his companions and friends. To a certain extent, this was the tradition of the entire D clan. They all valued their companions. Boring. Dustless stared emotionlessly at the falling blade. He calmly stretched out 2 fingers and grabbed the sharp blade. Clang! Along with the sound of metal clashing against metal, he looked up and saw Dustless's 2 fingers easily catching the blade in the air. The cold blade stopped above Dustless's head, unable to move. Those 2 slender fingers were as hard as steel. How is this possible? The inexperienced Ace's eyes widened as a look of disbelief appeared on his face. To be able to catch a blade with his bare hands, this was the first time he had seen such a shocking scene. Bang! With a hook of his thumb, a ferocious repulsive force immediately shot out. A powerful and ferocious air wave immediately whizzed out. Ace, who was completely unaware of it, flew out powerlessly like a kite, smashing into a few trees. Poochie! With some ruddy blood stains on the corner of his mouth, Ace stood up strongly. Although his body was swaying as he stood up, his eyes were firmly locked on Dustless, or Luffy in Dustless's hand. This kid is worthy of being the son of One Piece. His willpower is surprisingly strong. Seeing this, Dustless nodded slightly and looked at the young Ace in a new light. Strong willpower, this seems to be the tradition of the D-clan. The physiques of the humans in this world are ridiculously strong. Even a child is so resistant to beatings. Wu Qin said incredulously as ripples appeared in his eyes that were as tranquil as an ancient well. They are all humans, but in this world where pirates run rampant, their physique seems to be much more resistant to beatings than Naruto's. Call Luffy out for me, or I will kill you. Glaring at Dustless, little Ace gnashed his teeth and roared. His face was as ferocious as a devil's. At the same time, he took out a gun from nowhere and pointed the black muzzle at Dustless. It seems that if he says no, Ace will not hesitate to shoot. Alala, alala. What a scary little demon. Guns are dangerous toys. With a smile, Dustless then put Luffy on the ground, raised his hands, made a gesture of surrender, and looked at Ace with fear. Is this okay, scary kid? At least you know what's good for you. Glaring fiercely at Dustless, Ace gave Sabo a look. The latter nodded, then quickly trotted to Dustless's side, picked up the sleeping Luffy, and turned away. The 3 figures quickly disappeared into the woods. In the future, I will kill you with my own hands. Before I go to sea, don't let your head be taken away by others. In the dark forest, Ace's angry and gloomy roar could be heard. Probably because he was played by Wu Qin today, he felt unusually angry and uncomfortable. If you can really do it, I'll wait and see. Dustless put down his raised arms. For Ace's words, Dustless just smiled. Staring at the black shadow that has disappeared, and thinking of the low Kyokugami, red hair, pirates in Windmill Town, Dustless's eyes were cold, and then he looked at the unconscious bandits on the ground, and the Sharingan in his pupils turned and twisted again. These bandits' show was not over yet, and it was too early to give them a holiday. Afterward, Wu Qin walked around the Windmill Town alone. When he didn't find anything special, he left. He wasn't interested in such a remote place. For this secret mission, Dustless did not take a warship. He could only walk alone into the depths of the sea. The soles of his feet were covered with a thin layer of chakra, and he walked on the endless sea like a dragonfly skimming the water. His leisurely pace was more like an afternoon stroll. Dustless had mastered the beginner's skill of treading water decades ago. Chapter 6:18. On the endless sea, a single figure is clearly visible, stepping on the sea, looming in the heavy clouds, giving people an unfathomable feeling. Sometimes it's just a small step, but it gives people the illusion that they have moved hundreds of meters. Bucky Pirates. Captain has a bounty of Bucky the Clown with a bounty of 15 million berries. They are also former crew members of One Piece, but they are different. Looking at the bounty list in his hand, Dustless was quite puzzled. Shanks and Bucky are both Roger's crew members, but their strength and status seem to be different. Dustless, who wanted to tease Bucky, suddenly lost his mind. He thought that Bucky might be hiding his strength, and there must be other unknown conspiracies and purposes in the dark. Looking at the huge red nose on the bounty list, Dustless guessed that this guy is a character who is responsible for comedy. After the identity of the honorary admiral was exposed, the world knew that Dustless came to East Blue. Although it was very secretive and unknown, there is no impenetrable wall in the world, and the pirates who heard the news along the way fled in a hurry. Rumble, the Den Den Mushi in his arms rang, and the special Den Den Mushi was used by Dustless to communicate with Sengoku. There is a big problem in the Sabaody archipelago, and the Tenryubito living there was beaten. Without waiting for Dustless to speak, Sengoku's anxious tones suddenly came, with unprecedented puzzlement and entanglement. During his time as the fleet admiral, it seems that no good things have happened, and the news all day long is bad news that makes him vomit blood. Tenryubito was beaten. What does it have to do with me? Hearing this, Dustless asked, with the meaning that it has nothing to do with him. This, asked by Dustless, Sengoku was suddenly speechless. When Dustless was an honorary admiral, he made 3 rules and could refuse to obey the orders of the fleet admiral. However, now that the Tenryubito was beaten, only an admiral can solve the problem. Sengoku can only find Dustless to solve the crisis for him. No matter what, you are of the same race. You should work together. After pondering for a long time, Sengoku found an extremely lame reason to fool Dustless, a reason that even he couldn't convince himself. Then there was a lot of coaxing and pestering. The warring states signed many unequal treaties, which barely moved Dustless. That damn bastard really knows how to stir up trouble. Seeing that Dustless agreed, Sengoku breathed a sigh of relief. His voice was filled with deep exhaustion. During the Marine Fleet Admiral period, nothing good happened. This is normal. Not all pirates are afraid of celestial dragons. It's natural for the pigs to be beaten. Dustless is calm as usual. Tenryubito thinks too highly of himself. At the same time, he also underestimates the blood of some pirates. There are a lot of pirates like Luffy who are full of blood. Dustless doesn't have the leisure to care about the clown Buggy. Take me to the Sabaody archipelago, so I can let you go. Anyway, I'm just a trainee Marine. Looking at Buggy lazily, Dustless casually found a couch to sleep. This kid is very smooth. He should know what is the most correct choice. If they say too much, it will only lead to trouble. You should thank me for this kind of good thing. Not everyone can be my slave. If you are willing to take the initiative to put on the collar, I promise to arrest the murderer who hurt your brother. Dustless patted his chest and promised, mercilessly adding fuel to the fire. His expression was full of confidence. The implication was that if you don't want to put it on, your brother's enemy will also escape. Being in the same room as Dustless might shorten his life by 10 years. Sakazuki, who did it? Daring to attack a celestial dragon. Touching his smooth chin, Dustless's eyes lit up with curiosity. The one who attacked the celestial dragons was either a hothead like Luffy or a top expert comparable to an admiral. At the very least, he was extremely conceited about his own strength. He thought that even if he was faced with the pursuit of a marine admiral, he would be able to retreat safely. Sakazuki's expression was stiff, and his hoarse voice was a little embarrassed. When we came, the group had already run away. We don't know who did it for the time being. Dustless nodded, indicating that he could understand. The marine headquarters was some distance away from the Sabaody archipelago. When they arrived, the group of pirates had already fled in a hurry. As for the idiot Chalmers, he didn't even see who it was before he was hit on the spot and fainted. About half an hour later, Sakazuki explained the cause of the matter. Chalmers and a pirate had a dispute over the devil fruit. Compared with the celestial dragons, the pirate naturally couldn't fight. As a result, he could only grab the devil fruit that Chalmers spent hundreds of millions of berries to buy. It was said that the devil fruit at the auction belongs to the paramecia system and can treat various diseases of the human body. But there are many famous pirates on the island, and there are many with a bounty of more than 100 million berries. Kazan said with a hint of eagerness to try. The same is true for Sakazuki and other marines. Do as you like. Remember to catch all the pirates. I won't accompany you. With a wave of his hand, Dustless gave the hard work to Sakazuki and Kazan. He was not interested in those minions. Akainu and others looked at each other and didn't talk nonsense. They left the tent. About a few minutes later, the ground suddenly throbbed and trembled slightly. Dustless, who was resting with his eyes closed, opened his eyes and asked softly, "What's the matter, White Zetsu?" White Zetsu's clones are all over the world's islands. Wherever people live, there are traces of White Zetsu, and the Sabaody archipelago is no exception. The pirate who stole the devil fruit from the celestial dragons is Green Pepper's subordinate. It seems that he wants to use that fruit to cure Green Pepper's bald head. The whole island is secretly full of White Zetsu's clones, and it's easy to get information. Boring. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head. It's just Green Pepper. In his heyday, his bounty is only more than 500 million berries. Even if his bald head is cured, it is estimated that his strength is about the level of an admiral. In addition, there are other pirates. By the way, Law, that kid seems to be in the Sabaody archipelago. White Zetsu said as he thought of the childish figure. Dustless's precise eyes suddenly flashed with interest, and he asked in a deep voice, "How is that kid's strength now? Is he capable of performing the ultimate surgery?" White Zetsu shook his head. He really doesn't know. Anyway, Law has made rapid progress over the years. Almost all the people who fought with him were cruelly beheaded by him. Among them, there are some pirates with more than 100 million bounties. Corazone's death left an unforgettable impression on Law, which is also the source and motivation for his continuous progress. Chapter 621. With the arrival of Dustless, Marines, who had only blocked the entire island, suddenly became rampant and turned from defense to active attack. For a time, the entire Sabaody archipelago became chaotic. The Marines from all directions rushed into the depths of the island like hungry wolves, and the chickens and dogs were restless. Pirates and Marines are two natural enemies. When they get together, they can only fight. If they don't fight to the death, it will be difficult for both sides to calm down. The hatred passed down from generation to generation has been settled for a long time. It really can't be resolved. Above the giant mangrove in the Sabaody archipelago, Dustless and White Zetsu stood on the branches and looked down at the battlefield in the distance. White Zetsu couldn't help but sigh. The product of yin-yang release is surprisingly sentimental. Turning his head, Dustless faintly said, "The person who created White Zetsu is him." White Zetsu just smiled. If the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. White Zetsu has no scruples. He knows Dustless's temperament and will not make a big fuss over such a trivial matter. The implication is that the sentimental character is inherited from Dustless. Hearing this, Dustless just glanced at White Zetsu indifferently, and his calm tone was emotionless. "I haven't seen you for a while. I didn't expect you to have a sharp tongue. Hey, this is also inherited from you." White Zetsu grinned. Everything he has was given to him by Dustless. His character and hidden skills were all inherited from Dustless. It is another portrayal of Dustless. There seemed to be two little mice moving below. His eyes drooped down and scanned the pirates below. Dustless's body flashed with photons and then turned into a straight beam of light roaring down. Boom boom boom, the earth was suddenly hit by a fierce impact, and it trembled fiercely. The surrounding ground was lifted up by tens of centimeters in an instant, and then a huge fire was swept up out of thin air. The fire was everywhere, and it was full of a burnt smell, which was nauseating. Looking closely, it turned out to be the corpses of the pirates and a large deep pit. When doctors face patients on the operating table, they are very calm. It's rare to see a doctor who treats patients while panting like you, Dustless said as he turned his head and looked at the young figure wearing a hat. He was wearing a fluffy winter fur hat with leopard spots. His eyes had dark eye bags and 2 small golden earrings on each ear. It was Trafalgar Law. Hee. I'm sorry, but I'm a quack. I only know how to kill people. Saving people is not my specialty, especially when it's the guy who almost killed me. Law's forehead was sweating, and beads of sweat kept dripping down. At this moment, the clothes on his upper body were burned. He stared at Dustless warily. His eyes were shining from time to time, and his face was ferocious. Since you don't do it, then don't blame me for bullying you. After that, Dustless's body glowed with countless luster and whizzed out. In just a moment, he came to Law's side and condensed his shining calf and kicked straight at his abdomen. Chapter 622. Law's pupils suddenly shrank and he did not hesitate to put his hands in front of him. He was ready for the defensive impact, but the dazzling flash suddenly subsided, as if nothing had happened. It was strangely calm. Law was stunned and opened his eyes subconsciously. Dustless came into view with a playful smile on his face, looking at him playfully, standing in front of Law, his thumb closed, and then lightly flicked toward Law's face. The air splashed with ripples, and the air waves visible to the naked eye spread out. Boom! Law, who was caught off guard, was suddenly hit, and there were obvious bloated marks on his forehead. The blood-red scars were clearly visible. He suffered an unprecedented heavy blow. His face was as pale as paper, like a willow branch drifting with the waves in the storm. He was vulnerable. Why? Is your strength just like that, Law? It seems that Corazone's death did not hit you hard enough, and your hatred is not deep enough, otherwise, you would not be so fragile. Looking at Law with disdain, Dustless shook his head sarcastically, and his face was full of naked disdain. Your confident look just now, was it all for Corazon to see? I really feel sorry for Corazon. Hearing this, Law's eyes flashed with violent killing intent, his eyes turned scarlet, and he stared at Dustless unkindly. This look is good, but your appearance is a waste of this sharp look. It gives people a feeling of blindness. That is, it's a slap in the face. Shaking his head hopelessly, Dustless looked at Law, whose face was getting darker and darker, and did not hesitate to add fuel to the fire. Once he thought that this kid could do immortality surgery, he would not hesitate to use genjutsu to control him. Wu Qin was now able to be immortal and indestructible. His female confidants were still unable to reach this level. He could only control Luo to temporarily use it on one of them. This is also the fundamental purpose of Dustless's control of Law. This kid has no outstanding ability in other aspects. The reason why he is stimulated is to force out his strength and see if he has the strength to do immortality surgery now. Clang clang clang, the wild sword in his hand was unsheathed and condensed into a cold light. Law's eyes were isolated from the world, like 10,000 years of ice and inhuman. Ha! Dustless made a frightened expression and looked at Law in fear. I hope you can still be so smug later. With a livid face, Law lost his calm and roared angrily. Corazon is Law's reverse scale and the person he respects the most. Just now, he caught the contempt and disdain in Dustless's tone, which has indirectly aroused Law's killing intent. Room slaughterhouse. Aiming at the tiny loopholes in Dustless's body, Luoidao swept out. He thought that he could easily divide Dustless, but the unexpected scene made him stunned. Clang clang clang, Dustless stood quietly in the same place, without the slightest discomfort in his body, but there would be a roaring impact of steel, which could not shake him at all. It was extremely difficult to force Dustless to move his feet, let alone divide him. The strangest thing is that Dustless's whole body is covered with black dark skin, like steel integrated with the skin, which is extremely strong. What is this? Law's tone, with surprise and doubt, muttered to himself incredulously. After wandering in North Blue for so many years, he has seen such a strange ability for the first time. His throat twitched unconsciously, and Law's face was full of amazement. He saw this strange scene for the first time. Is this the rumored armament hockey? Thinking of the legend of armament hockey, Law was shocked. This is the first time he has met someone who can use armament hockey, especially this kind of whole-body armament hockey, which is unheard of. He didn't expect that this kind of trick, which can touch the body of Logia's fruit, can also defend against his surgeon fruit. The clang 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 steel impact that came from Dustless's body was actually his attack. But it did not cause any substantial damage, and even Dustless's skin did not break. Your surgeon fruit is very good, it is invincible, but if you think you can defeat me with this special attack, it is tantamount to a fool's dream. Dustless, who entered the state of armament hockey, said indifferently. The ability of surgeon fruit is unsolvable. In the special space created by Law, everything is dominated by him, and armament hockey can be defended to a certain extent. In the future, Doflamingo will use armament hockey to defend against Law's slaughterhouse. Do you think your ability is invincible and you can do whatever you want? Every day there are many pirates on the Grand Line who think so, but they all end up dead. Dustless, who was shining with black light, said. There are countless pirates who have the ability of surgeon fruit, but in the end, they still step into the abyss of hell, which also shows that there is no invincible ability in this world, and the key is comprehensive ability in all aspects. No, I can't die yet, I have to avenge Corazon. Lowell roared hysterically as he stared at Dustless, who was slowly approaching. Dustless didn't take a step forward, and his heart would be depressed and desperate. This monster with black paint and steel bones is enough to defend against all attacks. It is no different from invincible. His attack and defense are perfect. It is almost impossible to shake him. Fragile. Seeing Law's eyes flickering, Dustless had already guessed that he was exhausted and had done his best. Boom. From the point of view of a genius doctor like Luo, even if he could not operate on himself, there was still a way to save his life. Boom, boom, the ground suddenly trembled, and a strong storm swooped down. The pirates and marines who were fighting around were hit by this strong impact. Their eyes turned white and their mouths frothed as they were stunned. This unparalleled Haoshiku hockey. There is such a powerful character on this island. This kind of pure Haoshiku hockey is already considered to be perfect. It is very rare in the second half of the Grand Line. Dustless's eyes lit up, and he was a little surprised. In his mind, he could vaguely see a figure with an arrogant face and a big belly. The figure's bright eyes were filled with contempt, looking at everyone with disdain. Mr. General. That old man, Green Pepper All, went berserk. The Marine officer who hurried over said with a tone of anxiety and urgency. He even ignored the unconscious Law lying on the ground. Compared with Green Pepper, this kid is just a random fish on the side of the road, not worth mentioning. What about Sakazuki and Kazan? Dustless asked calmly. Both of them already have the strength of an admiral, but their ranks are still vice-admirals. Together, they can definitely capture Green Pepper, and it's easy to stop him. No matter how powerful Green Pepper is in his heyday, he can't resist the siege of two admirals. There are too many pirates on the island, and some of them are mysterious masters. Sakazuki and Mr. Akiji are tied down by them to deal with other pirates. Dustless frowned when he heard this. He didn't remember any masters in the Sabaody archipelago. Is it him? The figure of a Pluto really popped up in his mind. Dustless secretly guessed. Rayleigh is still in his peak period and is not as old as he will be in the future. If it's him, it's not a problem to contain either Sakazuki or Kazan. Boom. Boom. Boom, another monstrous momentum spread out, rolling up bursts of smoke and dust, like a wild beast breaking out of its cage, venting the madness in its heart. That guy is really arrogant. Garp made him bald in the past and he didn't learn anything. Now he's coming out to make trouble. Do you think I'll let you slip away like Garp? His eyes were cold, and his overbearing eyes looked through the dense forest. He saw a strong old man who could shatter the earth with a wave of his hand. It's worth mentioning that at this moment, Green Pepper no longer showed any signs of going bald. His head was like a sharp thorn. Dustless could even see the arrogant smile on his face. Green Pepper may be retaliating against Mr. Garp for leaving him a shadow, the Marine who came to inform Green Pepper said bitterly. Garp offended him, but he didn't dare to find trouble with him. Instead, he bullied these small fries. It's ridiculous. On the contrary, Wuchen looked at Green Pepper indifferently and sighed sadly. Staring at Dustless, Don Chinjo secretly guessed. The top of his head turned black again, covered with a higher density of armament hockey. Standing up and staring at Dustless, Don Chinjo's eyes were not filled with fear, instead, they were full of fighting spirit. Lasers. A straight beam of light whizzed over, and Green Pepper, who had been so pleased with himself, was immediately engulfed. His entire body was engulfed in flames, and his entire being was annihilated by the crimson flames. Sneak attack. You Marines are as despicable as ever. Chinjo's slightly angry roar came out of the fire, and then a dark giant stepped out of the flames. The powerful roar mixed with the presence of a domineering presence spread to every corner of the island. Sneak attack. Have you become so arrogant after recovering your full strength? Do you think you are worthy of my sneak attack? A ghostly whisper, without warning, rang in Chinjo's ears. Suddenly, he turned his head and saw a golden calf whizzing over. Light speed kick. The voice was full of ruthlessness, and the power condensed on the foot was full of indifference. A merciless kick fell, and Chinjo was suddenly nowhere to be seen. Boom boom boom, the black shadow that was kicked out hit a large building, and in an instant, it was smashed into pieces and turned into countless broken walls. Chinjo was lying among them, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. It's not a sneak attack, you must have realized. Your huge body is not enough to keep up with my speed. As for the sneak attack, you are just deceiving yourself. The cold voice spread out, Dustless said expressionlessly. Human reaction nerves are limited, and the speed of light is beyond the scope of human seriousness. Even if he can perceive the existence of Dustless through observation hockey, he can't keep up with his attack frequency. It will create the illusion of a sneak attack, but in fact, Dustless is rushing in a straight line. Dustless's speed is too fast, and it is not an exaggeration to describe it as 10,000 miles in a glance. Although the distance of movement is limited, in Chinjo's eyes it is such an exaggerated speed. Through observation hockey, he can predict and even locate Dustless's foothold, but he can't make a counterattack to keep up with the speed of light frequency. In particular, Chinjo's body is huge, and it is more difficult for him to move. Boom boom boom, a golden brilliance suddenly rose into the sky, full of dangerous fluctuations, and then scattered like a storm, and the broken walls that Chinjo was buried deep in instantly turned into ruins. It turned into negligible powder floating in the sky. The power of the light speed kick is obviously not comparable to the laser, and there are obvious bloodstains on Chinjo's left shoulder, and there are traces of depression. Looking at Dustless angrily, Chinjo's killing intent is obvious. Even if you stare at me so fiercely, I won't be merciful. Golden photons appeared all over his body, and in an instant he turned into a flash of light, and then swept straight into the sky. The photons floating in the air recombined and condensed, and Dustless's face appeared. The dangerous light condensed in the palm of his hand, covering an unprecedented vast area, and anyone who is shrouded in the golden light will feel a sense of horror. Yasekani no Magatama. After a while, the flash poured down like a rainstorm, and the number of boundless flashes can't be calculated, and the whole sky was dyed with a dazzling golden color. Armament Haki hardening. Seeing this, Chinjo's face twitched, and his face turned green. He did not hesitate to use his whole body's armament Haki to defend himself. This kind of horrible attack made it meaningless to escape. Coincidentally, the same scene as before, he directly smashed a large building into a pile of rubble and buried himself deep in it. Desperately may be able to make up for the gap in strength, but you and I are indeed dimensional monsters. No matter how hard you work, how desperately you fight, it will be useless in front of Kensusuno. Dustless said lightly, the indifference in his words was as if he was drinking tea. At the same time, behind his body, the golden shadow gradually condensed and turned into a golden giant with a terrible face. The golden light shrouded the sky and covered the earth. The exaggerated height made people despair. If they wanted to fight this giant head-on, they had to at least be as tall as him. Otherwise, it would be like drawing water with a bamboo basket. Chapter 626. The mighty and extraordinary giant covered Dustless. The simple and heavy armor was clearly visible, covering the giant's body. However, this giant was obviously not at its peak state, it was more like a miniature version, some of its limbs were obviously incomplete. But even so, her exaggerated figure still made people feel terrified and hopeless. The evil golden light was beyond imagination. Under the cover of the light, one would feel suffocated. The mighty and extraordinary iron fist was enough to smash a large mountain. Can you stand up this time? But it seems that you can't. Dustless sighed as Green Pepper under the ruins did not move. He had tried his best to control Kensusuno's strength, he was hoping that this strong old man could play for a while, but it seemed that Dustless thought too much. Kaka, there was a throbbing sound from the ruins, and then it collapsed one after another. Then, Green Pepper could be seen crawling out of it. He was in a mess, and his whole body was bleeding. His bloody appearance was as if he had just run out of a pool full of blood. Ah! It's really scary to look like this. It seems that you still want to continue to fight. Why don't you just lie on the ground and wait for me to put the iron cuffs on you, and then escort you to Impel Down? Dustless sighed in distress. There was a world of difference between them, but he still struggled and suffered physical pain. Why should he ask for it? How can I just stand there and wait to be captured? This old man also has a dream. Boom boom boom. Before Green Pepper's voice fell, the golden rainbow fell from the sky and forcibly suppressed him. The bright light mercilessly crushed Green Pepper's huge body, pressing him into the ground. Kaka, unable to withstand the brutal force, the ground constantly cracked and trembled. The huge cracks crazily swallowed the surrounding ground, mercilessly destroying the surrounding environment. After a while, the golden light condensed and formed, revealing Dustless's figure, his eyes indifferently looking at Green Pepper under his feet. His eyes were as cold as ice. People who talk about dreams are people who have the same strength. Before you talk about dreams in front of me, you should first think about how to escape from Impel Down. Don't talk like this, it's just a joke. Dustless's words were like a thorn that pierced deeply into Green Pepper's heart. His eyes were locked onto Dustless's face, as if he wanted to engrave that cold face of his into his heart forever. The look in your eyes. Is that a silent protest? Dustless asked as he stared at Green Pepper's eyeballs, which were about to pop out of their sockets. Hearing this, Kon Chinjo seemed to have accepted his fate. He removed the armament Haki state, revealing his bloody body. Between his words, he was exhausted. I used to hear that the new Marine Admiral was a monster. I always thought it was an exaggeration. Now it seems that it is not a lie. Gasping, Don Chinjo said inexplicably. Dustless couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, indifferently looking at Don Chinjo under his feet. What do you want to say? He always felt that this guy's words had a hidden meaning. Don Chinjo's eyes were vaguely sneering, which made Dustless's eyes flash fiercely. A mere stray dog dares to be so arrogant. Caw caw caw, with a sudden force on one foot, there was a crisp roar. Dustless mercilessly stepped on Don Chinjo's head. His originally sharp head was once again stepped back to its original shape by Dustless. He turned back to the bald man of the past. If that's the case, you should be more obedient. If not, I don't mind adding some more meat. Dustless sneered as he looked at Don Chinjo's limbs with cold eyes. Boom boom boom, the sound of countless cannons suddenly spread, and the sea around Sabaody was densely packed with pirates, mercilessly shelling the entire Sabaody archipelago. Indiscriminate shelling covered the entire island. Ordinary civilians are also being targeted. Seeing this, Dustless slightly frowned. This intensive shelling, including the ordinary civilians who were not involved, was also involved in this huge shelling. Aware that his head returned to its original shape, Don Chinjo's killing intent rose, and he was about to fight with Dustless again, but the stinging pain all over his body made him grimace in pain. He intended to resist, but he couldn't launch a sneak attack. Civilians. So what? This old man is a pirate, not a marine. Don Chinjo sneered. As a pirate, he only has himself in his eyes. There is no need to worry about the life and death of others. This is the most basic principle of being a pirate. Stubborn resistance. Don Chinjo hopelessly glanced at Don Chinjo. If he didn't guess wrong, those battleships that shelled the Sabaody archipelago were Don Chinjo's subordinates, or pirates attached to them. Leave it to me, just freeze all of them. At this moment, Kazan's slightly tired voice came, and his tone was full of exhaustion. Dustless's face was full of doubts. Kazan's strength was almost the same as an admiral, but his tired appearance, and even the corners of his clothes had many holes. It was obvious that he had encountered a top powerhouse. Your state. What the hell is going on? Hell King, Rayleigh should be restrained by Sakazuki. Staring at the slightly embarrassed Kazan, Dustless was puzzled. On this island, only Hell King Rayleigh is a top powerhouse. In the future, when he was old, he could fight Kizaru, and now he is still young. Naturally, he can fight Admiral. Kazan's expression was stiff, and there was a flash of embarrassment. He scratched his head and said, "Suddenly a guy with a red nose attacked me. That guy's ability is very strange. His body can split into 4 or 5 parts." Thinking of that strange ability, Kazan was quite surprised. Red nose. Split into 4 or 5 parts. This time it was Dustless's face that was strange, a red nose that split into 4 or 5 parts. This is obviously the great god Bucky. Then on second thought, Dustless was relieved. Anyway, he was also a crew member of One Piece and had been through hundreds of battles. It was normal for him to hide his strength and scheme. The crew members who used to follow the Pirate King were all first-class experts. The last time he rode on Bucky's battleship, Dustless vaguely felt that there was something wrong with the old guy. Chapter 627. Although he doesn't understand what Buggy's purpose is, judging from the treachery of the world government, the Gorosei will never arrange a weak clown as Shichibukai for no reason. There must be some unknown secret in it. After hearing Kazan's words, Dustless suddenly realized that the situation around Buggy the Clown was indeed somewhat illogical. Watertight is not an unintentional mistake. Sometimes it is because it is too perfect that mistakes are made. Dustless saw this epitome in Buggy the Clown now. Perfection is also a failure. Boom! Harsh explosions rang out, and the sea around the Sabaody archipelago was bombarded by a large number of pirate ships. and the civilians of the Sabaody archipelago fled like rats crossing the street. Hey, it's really troublesome. I thought it would be a pleasant task. These pirates are really tricky. Looking far away, Aokiji saw that the distant sea was full of battleships, and he quickly swept over. He only needed to use his Ice Age on the sea to freeze the surrounding sea, and these pirates would be like turtles in a jar. It's a pity. Dustless looked down at Don Chinjo and said abruptly. Don Chinjo's face was black, and he simply ignored the existence of Dustless and buried his old face in the ground. It seems that the monotonous ground is better than Dustless's face. Seeing this, Dustless just smiled. Your apprentice beat the celestial dragons and robbed the devil fruit auctioned by Charles Ross. If he was caught, I don't need to say it. You know what the end would be. It's lucky to be executed directly. Dustless said. The speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Green Pepper's old face changed subtly. Of course, it's the luckiest thing to be executed directly. With the cruelty of the celestial dragons, it's normal to cut him into pieces and then throw him into the sea to feed the sea kings. Dustless continued to add fuel to the fire. Celestial dragons are arrogant and look down on everyone. In their eyes, humans are just inferior creatures. To put it bluntly, humans all over the world are their entertainment. Although it sounds a bit exaggerated, the world of celestial dragons is like this. What are you trying to say? Green Pepper asked in an unfriendly manner. Every time Dustless talked about the habits of the celestial dragons, Cone Green Pepper's heart became more and more depressed. Once his disciple was captured alive, he would inevitably be dismembered by the furious celestial dragons. In fact, what I want to say is very simple: obey me, and I have something for you to do. If not, I will give your apprentice to the celestial dragons, and you can imagine the end. If you are willing to obey me, in the future, I will let you go safe and sound, and so will your apprentices. Dustless smiled evilly, full of coercion. When Don Chinjo was in his heyday, he was a big pirate with a bounty of more than 500 million berries. His strength was self-evident. Garp needed to personally deal with him. He fought with with ease. Dustless's current subordinates, except for Hawkeye who can suppress him, it is estimated that no one is his opponent. Although Doflamingo was strong, it was still some distance away from its peak. Are you threatening me? Don Chinjo asked angrily. Golden waves swept out, and the suffocating Haoshiku Haki was oppressive and suffocating. I am indeed threatening you. Dustless smiled happily and frankly admitted it. Between life and death, choosing the wrong choice would mean stepping into hell. Choosing the right choice would allow one to ascend to the heavens. It all depended on how one chose. My apprentice hit the celestial dragons. Even if you are a marine admiral, you can't pardon them. Don Chinjo did not refuse, but chose to retort. The identity of a marine admiral is scary enough, but he is still a lackey for the celestial dragons. Even some pirates in the New World ridiculed the marine admiral as the most loyal lackey of the celestial dragons. Where the celestial dragons are on fire, the marine admiral is responsible for extinguishing the fire there, is it? What if I am also a celestial dragon? Dustless asked jokingly. To some extent, the law of the world is built according to the will of the celestial dragons to satisfy their selfish desires and have great power. Even if a few pirates are released, it doesn't matter. Nonsense, do you think this old man is a 3-year-old child? The whole world knows that the celestial dragons are incompetent straw bags. His eyes widened, and the words that came to his mouth stopped abruptly. Don Chinjo looked at the corner of Dustless's torn clothes in horror. You are really a celestial dragon. Are you kidding me? Aren't they all incompetent straw bags? His rolling eyes suddenly lost their focus and was replaced by shock, and then he took a deep breath. Don Chinjo looked at Dustless's exposed coat. The uniform that only a celestial dragon dares to wear is not fake. pretending to be a celestial dragon. The entire world government has been around for more than 800 years, and no one has been so bold. How about? Agree to my conditions and go to heaven, refuse me. It's not impossible, but you have to be prepared in advance that your apprentice will be torn to pieces. Dustless said with a smile. Don Chinjo's old face turned green when he heard this. He was completely in a passive state and could only follow Dustless's nose. If he refuses, the apprentice who attacked the celestial dragons will be finished at any time. Agree. This is naturally even more impossible. He was beaten by Dustless, and now he has to beg for mercy in front of him. Don Chinjo's arrogant self-esteem can't stand it, and he can't accept it. For a time, he was in a dilemma. It was like a person suddenly beating you up and then using despicable means to make you be his obedient son. Moreover, it was the kind that you had to be. Aggrieved, uncomfortable, unwilling, hatred. All kinds of expressions solidified on Don Chinjo's face. For a moment, he almost vomited blood. He has never felt so resentful in his life. As an admiral of the Marine, how can you be so despicable? Don Chinjo asked angrily. In his heart, he was so angry that he cursed. This kind of person should be killed by a heavenly punishment. The Marine who boasted of absolute justice unexpectedly produced such a shameless and dirty villain like Dustless. God is simply blind. The whole sea was horribly split open with a gap of tens of kilometers. It was boundless. Gulp. Don Chinjo was stunned and swallowed his saliva. His eyes flashed with fear and dissatisfaction. He felt a chill down his spine. He knew that this was Dustless's demonstration in disguise. If he wanted to be lucky, even if he was at the end of the earth, he would be killed by this unprecedented move. Ah. Really, I tried my best to hold back, but he still created such a large-scale attack. It really is a difficult technique to control. Dustless was quite depressed. He was really afraid that Dustless would play with him and take him to impel down. In that kind of dark place, it is extremely difficult to breathe. Dustless-sama will not forget what he promised you. Glancing at Don Chinjo, White Zetsu opened the iron shackles that bound Don Chinjo. Chapter 630. Don Chinjo nodded ecstatically and then jumped into the sea without hesitation. White Zetsu's clone had been waiting for a long time to pick him up on a boat. It has to be said that the quality of the Marine soldiers trained by Sengoku was good. Hearing the sound of falling into the water, a large group of Marines quickly ran out of the cabin and looked at Don Chinjo, who had disappeared. Many smart Marines knew that Don Chinjo did not escape. They used lights to illuminate the entire sea. Don Chinjo disappeared in an instant and they picked up guns to attack him. However, the effect was negligible. Things like guns and cannons are just an insignificant itch for pirates who have more than 500 million berries. Wanting to hurt Don Chinjo is a fantasy, tantamount to a fool's dream. The #1 criminal of the Marine ran away. This crime must be carried by someone. Sengoku naturally can't blame Dustless. This matter has nothing to do with him, not to mention he is a celestial dragon, so he can only say, "What are you two doing?" The next morning, in the Marine Headquarters Fleet Admiral's office, Sengoku's angry roar resounded. At this moment, Kazan and Sakazuki were being mercilessly scolded by Sengoku. It must be their turn to carry the blame. A living Don Chinjo ran away. Because of you two, the Marine will be labeled as incompetent. Sengoku said while staring at Sakazuki and Kazan. If Don Chinjo was an ordinary criminal, it wouldn't be a big deal. With such an unprecedented strength, there is no doubt about the destruction he made. What made Sengoku gloomy the most is that he spent a lot of money to ask Wuchen to come out, but in the end, Don Chinjo ran away. The Marine headquarters didn't even get a chicken feather in the end, and because of Don Chinjo's escape, they will be labeled as incompetent and useless. Just thinking about it made Sengoku's stomach ache. It's ridiculous. How did that guy do it? I remember to lock him in handcuffs and shackles, and because I was worried, I tied his whole body with a special iron chain. Kazan was puzzled. Sakazuki frowned and nodded. Obviously, he also had deep doubts about this accident. The cooked duck flew away. It was more uncomfortable than eating 10 pounds of flies. Did I deliberately let him go? Sengoku rolled his eyes and asked with an angry smile. Waving his hand, Sengoku was too lazy to waste his breath. Don Chinjo has run away, and it's useless to reprimand Kazan and Sakazuki. After a while, I can authorize the three to be admiral. Sengoku secretly decided. If it wasn't for the unexpected incident in the Sabaody archipelago, Borsellino and the others might have already been marine admirals. Now that Don Chinjo suddenly appeared and disappeared, Sakazuki and Kazan's perfect achievements left a stain. Rashly being promoted to admiral will definitely be a problem. Naturally, Sakazuki and Kazan. Okay, you can go back.